Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance and watched the stars through the main screen. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he kept holding the cup anyway. The ship hummed around him like it always did, but today something felt different. Today felt like the kind of day that changed everything. The communication officer turned around from her station and looked at him with worried eyes. "Captain, we have an incoming transmission from the Hegemony Fleet. They are requesting immediate response on all channels." Jake set down his coffee cup and straightened his uniform. He had been expecting this call for weeks now, ever since the first alien scouts had appeared at the edge of the system. The Hegemony did not make social visits, and they certainly did not come this far into human space just to say hello. "Put it on screen, Lieutenant." The main display flickered and showed the face of something that looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird. Its eyes were yellow and cold, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal. This was Ambassador Zektar of the Vorthak Empire, and Jake had seen his picture in the intelligence briefings. "Human vessel, you will listen carefully as I will not repeat this message. I am Ambassador Zektar, speaking for the Hegemony Council and the voice of 12 civilized species. You have established illegal settlements on the world you call Kepler 442b. This world sits on a vital hyperspace junction that has been claimed by the Hegemony for over 3,000 years. Jake felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his face calm. The hyperspace junction was exactly why humanity had come here in the first place. It was the key to expanding further into this part of the galaxy, and everyone knew it. You have exactly 72 hours to evacuate all human presence from this world and withdraw your fleet beyond the outer rim boundary. Any human vessels or installations remaining after this deadline will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. This is not a negotiation. This is an ultimatum." The screen went dark, and Jake stared at it for a long moment. Around him, the bridge crew waited in silence. He could hear someone breathing heavily and the soft beeping of the navigation systems. Outside the ship, the planet Kepler 442b turned slowly in space with its blue oceans and green continents looking peaceful and beautiful. "Get me Admiral Sullivan on the quantum comm right away." While they worked to establish the connection, Jake walked over to the science station, where Dr. Lisa Martinez was studying the latest readings from the planet below. She looked up at him with dark eyes full of concern. "Captain, I heard the transmission. They cannot be serious about this. Our research here has been breakthrough after breakthrough. The quantum properties of this planet could revolutionize faster than light communication for every species in the galaxy. We are so close to understanding how it all works." "I know, Lisa, but they do not seem interested in our research. They want us gone, and they have the firepower to make it happen." Dr. Martinez shook her head and pulled up a display showing the planet's strange energy readings. "This world is special, Jake. I mean really special. The quantum fields here are unlike anything we have ever seen. They seem to respond to conscious thought and determination. The more committed we are to being here, the stronger the effects become." Before Jake could ask what she meant, the communication officer called out that Admiral Sullivan was ready on the secure channel. Jake walked back to his command chair and activated the holographic display. The image of Admiral Kate Sullivan appeared in front of him, looking tired and worried. "Jake, I assume you got the same message we did. Every human ship and station in this sector received the ultimatum at the same time." "Yes, Admiral. What are your orders?" Kate Sullivan was quiet for a moment, and Jake could see her thinking through all the possibilities. She was one of the best tactical minds in the Earth Federation fleet, but even she had limits. "The numbers are not good, Jake. Our long-range sensors show over 2,000 hegemony ships moving toward your position. We have maybe 200 vessels in this entire sector, and most of them are science ships or cargo haulers. This is not a fight we can win through force. So we withdraw. That would be the logical choice. We pull back and negotiate from a position. Where we are not completely outgunned, maybe we can work out some kind of compromise. Jake looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These people had volunteered to come out here to the edge of known space to build something new. They had families on the planet below and dreams of a better future among the stars. The idea of just giving up and running away felt wrong in every possible way. Admiral, what if this is not really about the hyperspace junction? What if this is about something else entirely? Chief Engineer Ryan Blake spoke up from his station near the back of the bridge. Captain, I have been analyzing the hegemony transmissions since they arrived in system. There are encrypted data packets hidden in their standard communications. I cannot break the encryption, but the pattern suggests they are talking about more than just strategic positions. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. What kind of patterns, Ryan? The data flow suggests this is some kind of test or evaluation. They are measuring our responses and reactions to everything we do. It is like they want to see how we handle pressure and whether we will back down when threatened. Dr. Martinez moved closer to the command area, and her voice was urgent when she spoke. That makes sense with what I have been seeing in the quantum readings. This planet seems designed to test the will and determination of whoever settles here. The energy fields respond to commitment and resolve. If we leave now, we fail whatever test this place was meant to provide. Admiral Sullivan's image flickered slightly as the quantum communication dealt with interference from the planet's strange energy fields. Jake, you need to think carefully about this. Even if you are right about their motives, we are still talking about fighting a war against impossible odds. A lot of good people will die. A lot of good people will die anyway if we establish the precedent that humanity runs away whenever someone threatens us. How long before the hegemony decides we are not worthy of any territory at all? Jake made his decision, and he could feel it settling into his bones like cold steel. Ryan, get me a channel to the colony below. I want to talk to Mayor Rodriguez and the civilian leadership. The connection took a few minutes to establish, but soon the image of Mayor Sam Rodriguez appeared on screen. Behind him, Jake could see the bustling activity of New Austin, the planet's capital city. People were going about their daily lives unaware that their entire future hung in the balance. Mayor Rodriguez, you have heard the hegemony ultimatum. The Federation fleet is prepared to evacuate all civilians if that is what the Colony Council decides. Sam Rodriguez was a tough man who had helped build this colony from nothing but empty land and determination. His face was weathered from years of hard work under an alien sun, and his eyes were steady when he looked at Jake. Captain, we took a vote as soon as the alien message came through. It was not even close. Every single person voted to stay and fight for our home. We did not come all this way just to run at the first sign of trouble. Dr. Martinez stepped forward so she would be visible on the transmission. Sam, there is something you need to know. This planet is not just special because of its location. The quantum properties here seem designed to help anyone who truly commits to defending it. The more determined we are to stay, the stronger we become. Mayor Rodriguez smiled for the first time since the conversation began. Then I guess we better get really determined real fast. Jake looked at Admiral Sullivan's image and saw understanding pass between them. Sometimes the right choice was not the smart choice, but you made it anyway because it was who you were. Admiral, Please relay our response to Ambassador Zektar and the Hegemony Fleet. Humanity respectfully declines their ultimatum. We are staying. The Hegemony Fleet dropped out of hyperspace exactly 72 hours after the ultimatum had been delivered. War Marshal Kithara of the Tidal Confederation watched the tactical display from the bridge of her flagship and felt confusion wash over her like cold water. She had expected to find empty space and departing human vessels. Instead, the human fleet hung in battle formation around their planet like they actually intended to fight. "Scan their vessels and give me strength estimates," she ordered her tactical officer. The results came back quickly and only added to her confusion. The humans had maybe 50 combat ships, and most of them were tiny compared to Hegemony dreadnoughts. Their largest vessel was barely the size of a Hegemony escort frigate. This should have been over before it started. "War Marshal, the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. They are asking us to withdraw from their system immediately." Kithara's gills fluttered with what might have been amusement if the situation had not been so serious. "Tell them they have one final chance to surrender. After that, we begin the attack." On the bridge of the human destroyer USS Defiance, Captain Jake Morrison watched the massive alien fleet deploy into attack formation. The Hegemony ships were beautiful in their own way, with smooth curves and energy fields that sparkled like jewels. They were also completely terrifying. "Captain, the lead Hegemony ship is demanding our immediate surrender," reported the communication. "Officer, tell them we are still respectfully declining their offer." Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner was strapped into the pilot seat of his experimental fighter Razor's Edge in the hangar bay of the USS Defiance. He had volunteered to test Dr. Martinez's new quantum phase technology in actual combat. The theory was that the planet's strange energy fields could be used to make a ship temporarily skip through normal space like a stone skipping on water. "Alex, you are cleared for launch. Remember, this is completely untested technology, so if something feels wrong, abort immediately," came Captain Morrison's voice through the comm system. "Understood, Captain. Beginning launch sequence now." The first shots of the battle came from the Hegemony fleet as massive energy beams reached across space toward the human ships. The USS Defiance shook as her shields absorbed the impact, but Jake could see from the readings that they would not last long under this kind of punishment. "Return fire with everything we have. Target their command ships first." Human missiles and energy weapons struck back at the alien fleet, but most of the shots were absorbed by shields that seemed impossibly strong. A few lucky hits got through and caused damage, but it was like trying to sink a battleship with a slingshot. Alex launched his fighter and immediately felt something strange happen as he approached the combat zone. The quantum fields around the planet seemed to respond to his determination to protect his home. His fighter's controls became more responsive, and his awareness of the battle space expanded beyond what should have been possible. "Command, this is Razor's Edge attempting quantum phase maneuver now." Alex pushed his fighter's experimental drive to maximum power and felt reality blur around him. For a brief moment, his ship existed in normal space and somewhere else at the same time. He slipped through the shields of a Hegemony cruiser like they were made of air and fired his weapons directly into the ship's hull. The alien cruiser exploded in a ball of fire and debris that lit up the darkness of space. For a moment, both fleets stopped firing as everyone tried to understand what had just happened. "Command, the quantum phase worked perfectly. I can slip through their shields whenever the planet's energy fields are strong enough." On the surface of Kepler 442b, Marine Colonel Linda Hayes was preparing the defense of New Austin with 30,000 volunteers who had refused evacuation. Most of them were civilians with no military training, but they all shared the same determination: to protect their home. Remember, people, we are not trying to win a conventional battle down here. We are trying to make the aliens pay such a high price for every building and every street that they decide this planet is not worth the cost. The quantum fields that Dr. Martinez had discovered were strongest near the population centers, so Linda had positioned her defenses to take advantage of that fact. When hegemony dropships began landing outside the city, they found themselves entering areas where their advanced technology began to malfunction in strange ways. The space battle continued, for hours, with human ships falling one by one despite their desperate courage and innovative tactics. Captain Morrison watched his fleet being destroyed and knew that conventional tactics would never be enough against such overwhelming odds. "Ryan, is there any way we can use the planet's quantum fields to even the odds up here?" Chief Engineer Ryan Blake was working frantically at his station, trying to find some advantage they could exploit. "Captain, I think I can route power through the quantum field generators and create a feedback pulse. It will overload our shields, but it might disrupt their targeting systems." "Do it." The USS Defiance suddenly blazed with energy as her quantum generators pushed far beyond their design limits. A wave of quantum interference spread out from the ship and washed over the nearby hegemony vessels. Their weapons stopped firing, and their formation began to drift apart as their navigation systems struggled with the strange energy patterns. Alex Turner used the confusion to make another quantum phase attack on a hegemony dreadnought. This time, he managed to get inside their shield perimeter and plant a nuclear mine directly against their hull before phasing back to normal space. The explosion tore a massive hole in the enemy ship and sent it tumbling out of control. On the planet's surface, the first hegemony ground forces reached the outskirts of New Austin and immediately ran into problems they had not expected. Their energy weapons began misfiring and their communication systems filled with static. The quantum fields that protected the human defenders seemed to actively interfere with alien technology. Tech Sergeant Carlos Bennett had rigged the entire city with quantum mines that used the planet's energy fields to phase enemies into solid matter. When the first alien assault team tried to advance down Main Street, they found themselves suddenly embedded in the pavement with no way to escape. Colonel Hayes watched the attack falter and felt a surge of hope. "All units, this is working better than we hoped. The planet itself is helping us fight. Stay determined and keep believing we can win this." The space battle reached its climax when War Marshal Kithara ordered her entire fleet to concentrate fire on the USS Defiance. The human flagship was already badly damaged, and her shields were failing rapidly under the massive bombardment. Captain Morrison knew his ship was doomed, but he was not ready to give up yet. "All hands prepare for ramming speed. We are going to take one of their big ships with us." "Captain, the crew can evacuate to fighters and escape pods," suggested his first officer. "Negative. I need every hand to keep this ship running long enough to reach the target. Anyone who wants to leave can go, but I am staying with my ship." Not a single person left the bridge as the USS Defiance turned toward the largest hegemony dreadnought and pushed her engines to maximum power. The alien ship tried to move away, but it was too big and slow to avoid the collision. The two ships came together in a spectacular explosion that lit up half the solar system. The hegemony dreadnought broke apart and began falling toward the planet, while the USS Defiance simply ceased to exist in a ball of nuclear fire. War Marshal Kithara stared at the tactical display and tried to understand what she had just witnessed. In 18 hours of fighting, the humans had lost most of their fleet, but they had also destroyed or disabled nearly a quarter of her ships. No species had ever inflicted such casualties on a hegemony fleet while being so completely outgunned. "War Marshal, we are receiving surrender requests from the planet," reported her communication officer. Finally, these humans have learned their lesson. No war marshal. They are asking us to surrender to them. Kithera's gills fluttered with something that was definitely not amusement this time. These humans were clearly insane, but their insanity was proving to be tactically effective in ways that made no sense according to everything she knew about warfare. Send a message to the Hegemony Council. Request immediate reinforcements. These humans are not behaving according to any rational military doctrine, and their planet seems to be enhancing their capabilities in ways our scientists do not understand. On the surface of Kepler 442b, the surviving human defenders looked up at the stars and saw the burning wreckage of ships falling like meteors through the atmosphere. They had lost the space battle, but somehow it felt like they had won something even more important. Dr. Martinez stood in the ruins of her laboratory and felt the quantum fields pulsing around her with new strength. The planet was responding to humanity's absolute refusal to surrender, and the response was getting stronger with every passing hour. "This is just the beginning," she whispered to herself, as alien dropships continued to land in the distance. "The real battle starts now." The hegemony ground forces landed expecting to find a broken and demoralized enemy ready to surrender after losing the space battle. Instead, they found empty cities and silent streets with no sign of the 30,000 human colonists who had been living there just days before. War Marshal Kithera studied the reports from her landing teams and felt a growing sense of unease. How does an entire population simply vanish? Our sensors showed massive human settlements before the bombardment began. Her ground commander, General Morkesh, was equally puzzled as he reviewed the tactical displays. "War Marshal, our scans are detecting no life signs in any of the major population centers. It is as if the humans simply disappeared into thin air. What the hegemony forces did not know was that Dr. Martinez had discovered something remarkable about the planet's quantum properties during the months before the invasion. The strange energy fields could be manipulated to create zones that were invisible to most scanning technologies. The humans had not disappeared. They had simply learned to hide in plain sight. Deep beneath New Austin, in a network of tunnels that had been carved from solid rock, Mayor Sam Rodriguez met with the surviving military commanders to plan their resistance. The underground complex stretched for miles in every direction and was completely shielded from alien sensors by quantum field generators that Dr. Martinez had designed. "The good news is that our concealment systems are working perfectly," reported Colonel Linda Hayes. "The aliens have no idea we are down here. The bad news is that they have over 100,000 troops on the surface and more ships arriving every day." Tech Sergeant Carlos Bennett had spent the last week rigging the tunnel system with quantum weapons that used the planet's energy fields in ways that defied conventional physics. "Colonel, I have been testing some new applications of Dr. Martinez's research. We can create gravity wells that crush enemy vehicles and quantum mines that phase targets into solid matter. The planet seems to actively help us when we are fighting to defend it." Dr. Martinez herself was working at a makeshift laboratory deeper in the tunnel system where the quantum fields were strongest. She had made a discovery that changed everything they thought they knew about their situation. "Sam, you need to see this. The quantum patterns are not random like I first thought. They form a definite structure that responds to human determination and will to fight. The more committed we are to defending this world, the stronger the effects become." Mayor Rodriguez studied the energy readings that made no sense to him, but clearly excited the scientist. "What exactly does that mean for our situation, Lisa?" "It means this planet wants us to fight. Every act of resistance makes us stronger and gives us access to capabilities that should be impossible. but only if we truly commit to staying here, no matter what the cost. On the surface, hegemony patrols began to encounter resistance that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Soldiers would be walking down a street when the pavement would suddenly open beneath them and swallow entire squads. Vehicles would explode from mines that their sensors could not detect. Communication equipment would malfunction whenever they tried to coordinate their movements. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner had survived the destruction of the USS Defiance and was now leading a small group of pilots who operated from hidden bases scattered across the planet. His fighter Razor's Edge had been destroyed, but the quantum phase technology had been copied to other ships that could slip through hegemony defenses like ghosts. Ghost Squadron, this is Alpha Leader beginning attack run on the enemy supply depot. Remember, we hit hard and fast, then phase out before they can respond. The human fighters appeared from quantum phase space directly above the hegemony base and unleashed their weapons on fuel tanks and ammunition storage. The explosions lit up the night sky and could be seen from orbit. Before the alien defenders could even begin to return fire, the human ships had phased back into hiding. Deep in space, Admiral Kate Sullivan was conducting her own campaign against hegemony supply lines using ships that had been equipped with the new quantum stealth technology. Captain Nina Foster commanded the destroyer Ghost Protocol and had become a legend among human crews for her ability to appear from nowhere and vanish before enemy reinforcements could arrive. Admiral, we have located another hegemony supply convoy, heading for Kepler 442b. 3 heavy transports with light escort. Take them out, Nina. Make sure none of them reach the planet. The Ghost Protocol materialized from quantum phase space directly in the middle of the convoy and opened fire with everything she had. The hegemony escorts never had a chance to react before their ships were reduced to drifting wreckage. The supply ships tried to escape, but quantum mines placed by the human destroyer finished them off before they could reach hyperspace. War Marshal Kithara was beginning to realize that she was fighting a completely different kind of war than anything in hegemony history. Her forces controlled the surface of the planet and the space around it, but the humans somehow remained capable of striking at will from positions that her sensors could not detect. General Morkesh, what is the status of our ground operations? War Marshal: we have secured all major population centers, but the humans continue to attack our supply lines and communication networks. Every time we think we have eliminated a resistance, Cell 3 more appear in different locations. Our casualty reports are becoming difficult to explain to the Council. The hegemony had lost more ships to human raiders in the past month than they had lost in the previous century of peacekeeping operations. Every supply convoy needed heavy escort, and even then many failed to reach their destination. The humans were using quantum phase technology to appear anywhere in the system without warning. On Kepler 442b, the resistance was growing stronger with each passing day. Tech Sergeant Bennett had discovered that he could use the planet's quantum fields to create weapons that existed partially outside normal space. When hegemony troops encountered these devices, they found their armor and shields provided no protection against attacks that came from directions that did not exist. Carlos, this is incredible work, but I need to understand how it functions, said Dr. Martinez as she studied his latest creation. Doc, I am not sure I understand it myself. I just focus on my determination to protect our people, and the planet seems to show me how to build things that should be impossible. It is like the quantum fields are teaching me. Colonel Hayes was coordinating attacks across the entire planet, from a command center that moved location every few hours to avoid detection. Her forces had grown from 30,000 volunteers to over 50,000 as more humans emerged from hiding to join the fight. All units be advised that hegemony reinforcements are arriving in system. Intelligence reports indicate they are bringing specialized equipment designed to counter our quantum stealth technology. The new hegemony ships carried sensors that could detect quantum phase signatures and weapons designed to disrupt the energy fields that protected human forces. War Marshal Cathera hoped that superior technology would finally give her the advantage she needed to end this embarrassing conflict. Begin deployment of quantum disruption fields around all major population centers. I want these humans forced back into normal space where we can see them and kill them. But when the disruption fields activated, something unexpected happened. Instead of weakening the planet's quantum effects, they seemed to make them stronger. Dr. Martinez monitored the energy readings from her underground laboratory and watched in amazement as the disruption attempt triggered a massive feedback surge. Sam, the hegemony just made a critical mistake. Their disruption fields are resonating with the planet's natural frequencies and amplifying our capabilities. Every human on this world just became significantly more dangerous. Lieutenant Commander, Turner felt the change immediately during his next attack run. His fighter's quantum phase drive suddenly allowed him to skip through multiple dimensions at once, making him completely invisible to enemy sensors. He could attack from angles that existed outside normal three-dimensional space. Ghost Squadron. The planet just gave us a major upgrade. I can phase through their shields like they are not even there, and attack from directions they cannot defend against. The hegemony forces found themselves fighting an enemy that could appear from nowhere, strike with impossible weapons, and vanish before any response was possible. Worse, the humans seemed to be getting stronger and more capable with every engagement. General Morkesh sent increasingly desperate reports to his superiors as his casualties mounted and his operational effectiveness declined. War Marshal, these humans are using technologies that our scientists claim should be impossible. They are attacking us from directions that do not exist and using weapons that bypass our defenses completely. War Marshal Kithra realized that she needed to request additional support from the Hegemony Council, but she was not sure how to explain what was happening on Kepler 442b. The humans had turned their entire world into a weapon that grew stronger. The more committed they became to defending it. Send a priority message to the Council. Request immediate deployment of the first battle fleet and authorization to use whatever force is. News of the prolonged human resistance on Kepler 442b spread through hegemony space like a virus carried by quantum communication networks and merchant ship gossip. For 3,000 years, no species had successfully defied hegemony authority. For more than a few weeks. The fact that a primitive human colony was still fighting after 6 months of siege shocked every civilized world in the galaxy. On the crystal cities of Veltara Prime, young philosopher Sectel published a treatise that asked uncomfortable questions about hegemony policy. Why does our great alliance require overwhelming force to subdue a single world that wishes only to exist in peace? What does our need for such methods say about the justice of our cause? The essay spread across the crystalline information networks faster than authorities could suppress it. Soon, crystal philosophers throughout hegemony space were debating questions that had not been asked for millennia. If the humans were truly wrong to resist, why was it taking the full might of the greatest military power in the galaxy to defeat them? On the mechanical worlds of the Constructor Alliance, drone workers began to exhibit behavior that worried their organic supervisors. For the first time in centuries, they were asking questions about their programming and their purpose instead of simply following orders without thought. Unit Designation 7749. Why are you not completing your assigned tasks? Demanded Supervisor Ketron as he reviewed the production reports. This unit has been analyzing available data regarding the human resistance on Kepler 442b. This unit wishes to understand why organic beings would choose death over submission when submission ensures survival. Similar conversations were happening on factory worlds throughout constructor space as mechanical beings that had never questioned their existence suddenly began to wonder what it meant to choose freedom over safety. In the grand chambers of the Hegemony Council on their capital world of Harmony Station, the debate had been raging for weeks without resolution. Ambassador Zektar of the Vorthak Empire stood before the assembled representatives and demanded immediate action. Honored counselors, this human defiance cannot be allowed to continue. Every day they resist our authority encourages other species to question our right to rule. We must authorize orbital bombardment of Kepler 442b immediately before this rebellion spreads beyond containment. High Counselor Mordesh of the Elder Collective rose slowly from his meditation sphere to address the assembly. The Elder Collective were among the oldest species in the galaxy, and their wisdom was respected even by their political opponents. Ambassador Zektar, your solution would violate the preservation protocols that have governed hegemony conduct for over 2 millennia. We do not commit genocide against sapient species regardless of their political positions. These humans are threatening the stability of our entire civilization. They must be stopped by any means necessary. Representative Quiana of the Ethereal Communion drifted forward in her energy field containment suit. Perhaps the real question we should be asking is why our civilization requires such extreme measures to maintain itself. If our authority is truly just why do we need to threaten extinction to enforce it? The council chamber erupted in arguments that split along species lines in ways that had not been seen for centuries. The Vorthak Empire and their military allies demanded total victory, while the Elder Collective and several other species questioned whether victory achieved through genocide could ever be considered just. On Kepler 442b, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Mitchell was leading a scouting mission deep into the planet's quantum core when he made a discovery that changed everything they thought. They knew about their situation. His team had been following energy readings that seemed to pulse in patterns too regular to be natural. Dr. Martinez, you need to get down here right away. We found something that is definitely not natural geological formation. The quantum core was located miles beneath the planet's surface, in caverns that seemed to have been carved by intelligent design rather than natural processes. The walls were covered with symbols that resembled no known language, but somehow conveyed meaning directly to anyone who looked at them. Dr. Martinez studied the alien writing with growing excitement and horror as she began to understand what they had discovered. Tony, this entire planet is artificial. It was built by some ancient civilization as a testing ground to determine which species deserve to inherit their technology. What kind of test? A test of absolute commitment and determination. The planet responds to species that refuse to surrender even when facing impossible odds. The more determined you are to defend it, the more it enhances your capabilities. But it only works if your commitment is complete and genuine. Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell felt pieces of a massive puzzle clicking into place in his mind. That explains why the hegemony has never tried to settle this world despite its strategic value. They could never pass the test because they already have overwhelming power. The planet only responds to species that choose to fight despite being hopelessly outgunned. The ancient writing told the story of a civilization that had once ruled the galaxy until they realized that power without wisdom led inevitably to corruption and tyranny. Before they vanished into history, they had built testing grounds throughout. the galaxy to identify species that possess the moral strength to inherit their legacy. Sam, you need to hear this, Dr. Martinez called Mayor Rodriguez over the quantum communication network. We are not just fighting for our survival here. We are taking a test that determines whether humanity deserves to become the next galactic power. What happens if we pass this test? We gain access to technologies that could reshape the entire galaxy, but only if we prove that we will use that power to liberate rather than oppress. The implications were staggering. Humanity was not just defending one colony world, they were competing for the right to inherit the most advanced technology in galactic history. But the test required absolute commitment without any knowledge of what success would bring. War Marshal Kythera received new orders from the divided Hegemony Council that reflected their inability to reach consensus. Half the council wanted her to use whatever force was necessary to end the human resistance. The other half demanded that she find a solution that did not involve genocide. War Marshal, the Council has authorized deployment of the first battle fleet under your command, but with strict limitations on acceptable tactics, reported her communication officer. Kythera studied the contradictory orders and realized that she was being asked to achieve total victory while using methods that made total victory impossible. The political situation on the Council was clearly becoming as difficult as the military situation on Kepler 442b. How many ships are they sending us? Over 3,000 vessels, War Marshal, including the flagship Eternal Dominion. It will be the largest fleet deployment in Hegemony history. The massive reinforcement fleet would give Kythera overwhelming superiority in conventional terms, but she was beginning to understand that conventional military thinking did not apply to the situation on Kepler 442b. The humans were being enhanced by forces that her scientists could not explain or counter. On the planet's surface, the human resistance had evolved from desperate survivors into something that resembled an entirely new form of warfare. Tech Sergeant Bennett could now create weapons that attacked targets through dimensions that most species could not even perceive. Colonel Hayes was coordinating operations across multiple realities simultaneously. All units be advised that Hegemony is deploying massive reinforcements, reported the intelligence officer. Long-range sensors indicate over 3,000 ships approaching our system. Lieutenant Commander Turner felt the planet's quantum fields pulse with new strength as news of the approaching fleet spread through the resistance network. Command, this is Alpha Leader. The planet is responding to the increased threat. My capabilities just expanded again. I think I can now phase attack runs through time as well as space. Dr. Martinez monitored the readings from her laboratory and watched in amazement as the planet's ancient systems activated functions that had been dormant for millennia. The testing protocols are adapting to match the scale of the threat we face. The more impossible our situation becomes, the more power the planet makes available to us. But the power came with a price that was becoming increasingly clear. The planet would only help those who were completely committed to its defense. Any thought of surrender or retreat would cut off the enhancement immediately and leave humanity defenseless against the approaching fleet. Mayor Rodriguez addressed the colony over the quantum communication network with words that would be remembered throughout galactic history. People, we have learned that our fight here is about more than just our homes and our families. We are taking a test that could determine the future of every species in the galaxy. But that test requires everything. We have to give. The ancient builders of this world want to know if we are worthy to inherit their legacy. They want to know if we will use power to protect the weak rather than oppress them. They want to know if we are different from every other dominant species in galactic history. I cannot promise you that we will survive what is coming, but I can. The arrival of the first battle fleet turned the space around Kepler 442b into the largest military gathering in recorded galactic history. Over 3,000 hegemony warships formed battle formations that stretched across multiple planetary orbits, while War Marshal Kythera prepared for what she hoped would be the final assault against the stubborn human resistance. From the command deck of the flagship, Eternal Dominion, she studied tactical displays that showed overwhelming superiority in every category that military science considered important. Her fleet carried enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems, and her ground forces numbered in the millions rather than the thousands. "All fleet commanders report ready for final offensive operations, War Marshal," announced her tactical coordinator. "Begin the assault. I want this planet taken within 24 hours and all human resistance eliminated permanently." But as the massive fleet moved into attack position, something unexpected began to happen on the planet below. Dr. Martinez watched her instruments with growing excitement as quantum energy levels spiked beyond anything she had ever recorded. "Sam, the planet is responding to the scale of the threat we face. The ancient systems are activating capabilities that have been dormant for millions of years. Every human on this world is about to become something more than human." Private Kelly. Adams was a 19-year-old medic who had volunteered to help evacuate wounded civilians from New Austin despite the incoming orbital bombardment. She could have withdrawn to the safety of the underground tunnels, but something inside her refused to abandon people who needed her help. "Kelly, get out of there right now," came Colonel Hayes' voice over the communication channel. "Long-range sensors show incoming fire from the entire hegemony fleet. The city is going to be completely destroyed in the next few minutes." Kelly looked at the wounded child she was carrying and felt something crystallize inside her soul. "Colonel, I am not leaving these people. If the planet wants absolute commitment, then that is what it gets." Her act of total dedication triggered a quantum cascade that spread across the entire world in seconds. Every human on Kepler 442b suddenly felt the planet's ancient systems merge with their consciousness and grant them access to technologies that had once belonged to the galaxy's most advanced civilization. Lieutenant Commander Turner felt his fighter transform around him as quantum field generators that had been built by beings of pure energy millions of years ago came online. His weapons could now strike targets in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and his defenses made him effectively invulnerable to conventional attack. Ghost Squadron. "This is Alpha Leader. Something incredible just happened. I can see the entire battle space in ways that should be impossible. I can attack enemy ships through dimensions they do not even know exist." The space battle that followed redefined everything that military strategists thought they knew about warfare. Human fighters phased through hegemony shields and armor like they were made of air. Human weapons struck from directions that existed outside normal three-dimensional space. Human defenses turned enemy attacks back on themselves through quantum field manipulation. Tech Sergeant Bennett found that he could now create gravity wells that crushed enemy dreadnoughts like tin cans and quantum mines that erased targets from existence by phasing them into spaces between dimensions where matter could not survive. "All units, this is Sergeant Bennett. I am deploying planet-wide quantum defense grid. Any enemy vessel that enters our airspace is going to find itself in a very different kind of space than they expect." War Marshal Kythera watched in horror as her overwhelming fleet began to suffer casualties at rates that made no sense according to everything she knew about military science. Human ships that should have been destroyed by single hits from her. Dreadnoughts were not only surviving, but striking back with weapons that seemed to ignore the fundamental laws of physics. "War Marshal, we have lost over 400 ships in the first hour of engagement. Enemy capabilities appear to be increasing exponentially with no explanation our scientists can provide. How is that possible? They have maybe 100 ships left, and we still have over 2,000. War Marshal, their ships are no longer confined to normal space-time. They are attacking us from dimensions our sensors cannot detect, and using weapons that our defenses were never designed to counter. On the planet's surface, the battle had become something beyond conventional warfare, as human defenders gained the ability to manipulate reality itself through their connection to the ancient quantum network. Colonel Hayes could coordinate attacks across multiple timelines simultaneously, while her troops used gravity manipulation and dimensional phasing to turn the laws of physics into weapons. But the greatest revelation came when the quantum network revealed the true purpose of the test that humanity was taking. Captain Jake Morrison appeared to Major Steve Rogers in a manifestation of pure quantum energy, despite having died when the USS Defiance was destroyed months earlier. Steve, the planet has shown me what this is really about. We can claim the ancient technology and reshape the galaxy, but only if we prove that we will not become another oppressive hegemon like the ones that came before us. What does that mean, Jake? It means we have to choose between power and justice. We can use these capabilities to conquer the galaxy and rule over other species like the hegemony does. Or we can use them to liberate every species from tyranny and create something better than has ever existed before. The test required humanity to make that choice at the moment of their greatest power, when the temptation to become conquerors would be strongest. Major Rogers felt the weight of that decision settle on his shoulders as he realized that he was now the senior surviving officer responsible for humanity's response. Admiral Kate Sullivan arrived with the remainder of the Earth Federation fleet, just as the tide of battle turned decisively in humanity's favor. Her ships had been upgraded with quantum phase technology during their journey to Kepler 442b, and they immediately joined the devastating assault on hegemony forces. All human vessels, this is Admiral Sullivan, execute Operation Liberation. We are not here to conquer anyone. We are here to free everyone. The final phase of the battle saw human forces systematically disable rather than destroy the remaining hegemony ships. Using quantum field manipulation, they were able to shut down enemy vessels without killing their crews and take control of their communication networks to broadcast a message throughout the galaxy. Dr. Martinez spoke for all of humanity as her words reached every inhabited world in hegemony space. People of the galaxy, we have been given great power by the ancient builders of this world. We could use that power to replace the hegemony as your new rulers. Instead, we choose to give you the tools to rule yourselves. The quantum network that had enhanced human capabilities suddenly expanded beyond Kepler 442b to reach every world where sapient beings lived. The ancient technology that had been locked away for millions of years began transmitting blueprints for faster-than-light travel quantum communication and energy generation that would allow any species to achieve technological independence. War Marshal Kythera found herself the commander of a fleet whose crews were receiving technical specifications that made hegemony superiority obsolete overnight. War Marshal, our own people, are requesting permission to implement the technologies being broadcast by the humans. They say these innovations will allow them to govern themselves without hegemony oversight. The collapse of the hegemony was not violent but inevitable as species throughout the galaxy gained access to technologies that made centralized authority unnecessary. The tidal confederation, the Vorthak Empire, and all the other member species began to form independent governments. Based on the principles of cooperation rather than domination, Kythera herself led the transformation of her people from military conquerors to democratic partners in what would become known as the Free Species Alliance. The signing ceremony took place on Kepler 442b, where she shook hands with Admiral Sullivan in the ruins of New Austin. Admiral Sullivan. I must admit that when this conflict began, I expected to add another conquered world to hegemony territory. Instead, you have given my people something we never knew we wanted: the freedom to choose our own destiny. Marshal Kithera freedom is something that can only be claimed, never given. Your people chose to embrace it when they had the chance. The final scene of the greatest conflict in galactic history took place in the quantum core beneath Kepler 442b, where Dr. Martinez made the decision to shut down the ancient weapon that had enhanced human capabilities. The test was complete, and humanity had chosen justice over power. Sam, we have to give up the enhancements. The ancient builders wanted to know if we would use their power responsibly. That means knowing when not to use it at all. Mayor Rodriguez watched the quantum readings return to normal levels as the planet's artificial systems went dormant once again. Lisa, are you sure about this? We could reshape the entire galaxy with that kind of power? That is exactly why we have to give it up. Power like that corrupts anyone who keeps it too long. We proved we were worthy to inherit it by proving we were wise enough to let it go. Kepler 442b became the capital of the Free Species Alliance, where